guys, my name's Chloe, otherwise known as Princess Aspian, and welcome to my channel. Just be me. October 10th is World Mental Health Day, something extremely close to my heart and something that we as a society need to start speaking more about and becoming more comfortable with, both within ourselves, our close-knit circles, and on a global scale. With suicide being the leading cause of death in people between the ages of 15 and 44, and 54% of people that are experiencing ill mental health not seeking help, it's time more so now than ever that we start working to change that. When we think of the word mental health, a lot of us may think of the extremities, of worst case scenarios, of psychiatric wards, and of these awful stigmas that Hollywood has put into our minds. If I ask you to think of a film where one of the characters is experiencing poor mental health, a lot of your minds might jump to The Joker or Split, a film where mental illness and mental health as a whole is portrayed as scary. Alternatively, a lot of us may think that only a certain group of people are able to experience poor mental health, that if you are experiencing poor mental health, it means that there is something wrong with you, that you're broken, or once again, that maybe we're simply not allowed to experience poor mental health because of our own situations. I have a good life, I have a good job, I have a good family, I have nothing to complain about. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Our mental health, just like our physical health, isn't something which only affects a small percentage of us. It's something which is a part of all of us, our everyday, our constant. And just like our physical health, our mental health isn't something that we should see as taboo and weird and strange to look after. Mental health is a part of all of us. It's a part of our constant, yours, mine, ours. And at some point in our life, half of us are going to struggle with a serious mental illness. I haven't been silent about my mental health journey. I have made sure to be extremely open with you guys and have told you guys about the struggles that I've been through. But I haven't spoken about it very much in depth before. So on World Mental Health Day, I want to open up with you guys a little bit more about my own story and a little bit more about what helped me and how you guys can also seek the same sort of help. Before I do begin, I do just want to put a content warning and let you guys know that I will be talking about eating disorders, anxiety, depression, and mental health issues. So if this is a topic that could be triggering to you, please respect yourself and your mind enough to know to step away, to take a break, to pause the video, and I will also be including links in the bio to mental health and eating disorder recovery services in case anything that I bring up today brings up anything in you. Growing up, I had the picture perfect life. I had an amazing family with parents who loved each other and loved us unconditionally. We were in a household that was filled with love and encouragement. We were consistently encouraged. I had a beautiful family with parents who loved each other and loved us unconditionally, where we were consistently encouraged to be ourselves. I was always surrounded by love within my immediate family, and our feelings and emotions were always validated. Looking at my story from an outsider's perspective, you would look at it and say, this girl has nothing to worry about. Why is she even making a video about ill mental health? She is fine. She is thriving. She has an awesome family. She's got her whole life in front of her. This is good. What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on. I grew up as an undiagnosed autistic girl, and for a very, very long time, I knew that the world around me wasn't created for me. Everyone had their place, and I didn't know where mine was, and not only did I not know where mine was, but I was almost positive I didn't have one. Now, as a kid, when you're like 5, 6, 7, that doesn't really matter a whole lot. You're young, you're still growing up, you're still kind of figuring yourself out. But as I started to get older, and as I started to see everyone else making friends and finding their spaces and knowing who they were, I felt like I was losing myself more and more and more. I knew from a very young age that the world that I lived in wasn't created for someone like me, and I didn't know why that was. I just knew that that's the way it was. So from a young age, I started to do things, and my parents started to do things to try and help me fit in, to try and help me make friends, to try and help the world seem not so scary. I remember the first time this happened, it was around Christmas time, just before school went on break, and I was in prep. I don't know how many of you guys are not from Australia, but prep is like your first year of school. My parents knew that I was struggling to make friends, so bless their souls, they decided to do something about it. And just before our school went on break, we had a Christmas party where we invited every single kid from my class, and to get everyone to come, we got all of the girls like Barbie dolls and Polly Pockets, and all of the boys Hot Wheels cars and Action Men, and everyone came, and there was like a petting zoo, and there was a Santa that came, and there was food, and there was toys, and there was games, and everyone came, because no 4-year-old, no 5-year-old is going to say no to that. And I remember I was so excited because for the first time in my life, I thought I had friends. I thought I had started to find where my place was. And then the next day I went to school, little 5-year-old me, so excited. I was so excited because I was like, this is it. I have friends. I have finally found my place. And the next day I went to school, and it was the first time that I had been beaten up. It was that moment that I knew that I didn't fit in here. And it was at that moment that I knew that I didn't belong. The next time this happened, I was turning 10, and I had a couple of friends at this school, and I thought that it was fine. I decided I was going to have a slumber party, and I invited these girls, and my parents obviously knew something that I didn't, because instead of the slumber party that I had planned, my parents decided to do something a little bit more extravagant. They hired a limousine, and this limousine driver picked up myself and these girls from their houses, and we went to Build-A-Bear and got matching Build-A-Bears, and we went to a jewelry shop and got matching like best friends forever necklaces. We went out to a fancy place for dinner, and I was so excited once again because I was like, this is it, I have friends. And the next day I went to school and I was wearing like all of my matching best friends necklaces with all of these girls, and they were all wearing theirs too. And the only reason that they were wearing their necklaces was so they could take them off in front of me, throw them in the bin, and say, we would never be friends with someone like you. I started to realize from a very young age that my mind wasn't the way it was supposed to be, and I spent a lot of my childhood extremely anxious and extremely nervous, to the point where I couldn't leave my house because I was so scared of what people were going to say. I was so scared of what people were going to think. When I was 12 and I was going into year 7, I had come to the realization that trying to change my mind wasn't an option. I couldn't fit in mentally, so perhaps I could fit in physically. I went to a very beachy high school growing up. All of the girls looked like Barbie dolls and all of the boys were surfers, and I was none of that. So knowing that I couldn't fit in with my mind, I decided to try and fit in with my body. I lost a lot of weight very quickly, and I started exercising excessively, and I thought that maybe if I could look like them, then maybe I could be like them. Maybe I could be accepted by them. I struggled with an eating disorder until I was 22. And this eating disorder put me in hospital several times. I had fits throughout my entire teenage life. The first time I had a fit, I remember I collapsed and my mum came over to me, and her first thought was, have you been taking drugs? My mum knew that I had been struggling, and she didn't know why or what that was. She didn't know that I had an eating disorder. So as a mum with a teenage daughter, her initial concern was, have you been taking drugs? That probably would have been a much easier explanation. Things would have been healed so much quicker if that was the case. If I was taking heavy drugs instead of, we're not talking about this, I'm sorry. I deal with my trauma through laughing, it's fine. I had fits probably once a week for at least 5 years. And it was because I wasn't looking after my body. Along with this eating disorder, I also had extreme anxiety, extreme depression, and I would have panic attacks at least once a week. I didn't know what panic attacks were at this point, and they were so intense that I thought I was having heart attacks consistently. There was a lot of points in my teenage life where I had to wear a heart monitor to check my heart rate. I was a patient at the Royal Children's Hospital in the cardiac unit because they thought that there was something wrong with my heart. My mental health was at an all-time low. I couldn't do anything that I loved anymore because I was so weak that I could barely stand. Nevertheless, ride and run and hang out with my siblings and go to concerts. My anxiety and my panic attacks were so extreme to the point where I could not leave my house, and they thought I had a serious heart condition when it was just panic attacks. I spent the majority of my teenage life feeling like I didn't need to be here. All of the moments which were supposed to be the happiest of my life were the worst. I would go to a party and I wouldn't eat anything because I was so scared of what calories could be in the cake. I would go out for dinner with my family, and I remember multiple occasions where I would lock myself in the bathroom during dinner because I was too scared to eat, and the stuff that I had eaten I didn't want inside of me anymore. I missed out on so many opportunities because I was weak, and because I was frail, and because my mental health was so poor. And for the longest time I thought that was it for me. For the longest time, I thought that poor mental health was what my life was supposed to be, that nothing was going to change. I didn't bother reaching out and seeking help because I didn't think there was a point. I didn't think that I was worthy enough. I didn't think that I was hurting enough. I didn't think there was any point because I thought that I was so broken and that my story was so different than anyone else's that there was no one that could help me, and that there was no point in trying to help. I struggled with my identity and who I was and what that meant for my entire teenage life. Well after I got diagnosed as autistic, I still felt like I didn't fit in, and I still didn't understand where my place was. And even after I started to understand my place, and even after I started to understand who I was, I couldn't shake myself from this feeling of just not being enough, of not being worthy. I would make videos and post them on YouTube talking about anxiety and talking about recovering from eating disorders and talking about recovering from depression and talking about mental health as if it was my past tense. I would talk about it as if I was recovered from it, as if I was happy as Larry, and then as soon as the camera turned off, I would cry and take off my makeup and crawl into bed and not see the light of day again for another 3 days. I could spill words and speak what I needed to hear until the cows came home, but I could not listen to them myself. It wasn't until I started to see the effect that it was having on my family, and it wasn't until I saw my dad crying and my sister crying and my mum crying, that I started to realize, why am I doing this to myself? And then once again, it wasn't until I started to realize how much I was missing out on that I actually realized that I needed to make a change. I could say every self-love and self-care thing in the world and none of it would sink in until I realized I'm missing out on every important part of my life just because I'm not choosing to look after myself and just because I'm choosing to not seek help. Realizing that you're struggling and realizing that you might need extra help and that you might need to step out and speak up and admit, hey, I'm struggling at the moment, is the bravest thing that you can possibly do. There is nothing weak or cowardly about stepping up and asking for help and admitting that you're struggling. Everything in this world needs help to grow, and you are not an exception. Stepping up and realizing that I was struggling and realizing that I needed to seek extra help was the biggest change in my life. Because I realized I needed help and because I realized that I was struggling is the reason that I'm still here today. I'm not going to pretend that I have all the answers. I am not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. I don't understand the way that brains work, but I do understand that when you decide to take that step and look after your mental health the same way that we would look after our physical health, is when you can start to make that change. Mental health is not linear. You are not going to decide one day, you know what, I don't want to struggle anymore, and then life is going to be handy dandy. That's not how life works. That's not how your brain works. That's not how it's going to work. But I can promise the day that you decide to make that change, and I can promise you that the day that you decide, I'm going to take charge of this, is the day where everything can start to change. And the thing is, it's not linear. It's not all going to be uphill. You're going to have bad days. You're going to have good days. You're going to have days where you feel like the whole world is against you, where you feel like you're against you, where you feel like everything is going wrong and you slip back into it. But every single step that you take to decide to take charge of it, every single step that you take forward is still a step in the right direction. Seeking out and reaching help when you need it is one of the bravest and most courageous things that you can possibly do. And it's also one of the hardest and one of the most scariest. At the moment, with the way that the world is, it can be harder to reach out for help more so than ever. Face-to-face meetings may be difficult or even impossible in some areas, but that does not mean that you have to suffer in silence. I'm so excited to have partnered with the BetterHelp app for this video, an online counseling service where you can speak to registered therapists from all around the world. With the BetterHelp app, you'll be matched with your own licensed professional therapist and can start communication in under 24 hours. You can also schedule weekly video calls or phone calls to take away from the anxiety of meeting someone face-to-face in person, uncomfortable waiting rooms, and you can do it from the comfort of your own home. With traditional counseling and therapy often also being extremely expensive, BetterHelp is much more affordable and financial aid is also available. If you would like to try BetterHelp and join over 1 million people who have taken that step into improving their mental health, check out the link down below. And anyone who uses that link to sign up will receive an extra 10% off the first month. Recovery is possible. Better days are out there, and I can promise you that with everything in me, because there was such a large period of my life where I didn't think that was a possibility. I thought that everyone had a chance except for me. I thought that the story, that my chapters in my book were coming to an end. Little did I know that they weren't even in their adventure stage yet. Taking charge of your mental health is okay. Talking about your mental health is okay. Talking about your ill mental health is okay. It is okay to reach out, to seek help, to need someone. And it's time that we realize that everything needs help to grow. It's time to realize that taking charge of our own mental health doesn't make us weak. In fact, it is just about the strongest thing that you can possibly do. Take time out for yourself. Take time out to love yourself. Reach out for help if you need it, whether it's through the BetterHelp app, whether it's through a family member or a doctor. Talk to someone you love. Talk to a doctor, talk to someone you trust. I promise you, better days are coming. There is always an answer. There is always a solution to everything in life. Every storm cloud has a silver lining, and yours is just around the roof of it. I love you guys so much, and I hope today and every day you guys are taking charge of your mental health and looking after yourself, because I promise you, you are so worth it, and you do not need to be suffering. You do not need to be struggling. Just another reminder, if anything I spoke about in this video today did trigger anything, did bring up anything, I have got links down below, so please refer to them or your own chosen helpline if you do need it. I love you guys so incredibly much, and you guys have changed my life more than you will ever know. Remember to stay kind to yourself, remember to stay kind to other people, remember to stay hydrated and look after yourself, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.
Just be